You open a website because you need one very small piece of information. Maybe the boiling time for an egg. Before the website will reveal this guarded knowledge, a large box appears. Accept all cookies. There may also be a second option called Manage Preferences, which opens a control panel apparently borrowed from a nuclear submarine. So why does nearly every website ask you to accept cookies? The short answer is that cookies help websites remember things. Some of that remembering is useful. Some of it is used to track people. Privacy rules require many websites to ask permission before doing the optional tracking part. So now we all negotiate with a rectangle before learning about eggs. To understand why, imagine your browser carries a tiny notebook. Every website gets its own page. When you visit a site, the site can tell your browser, "Please write this down." Your browser stores the note and may show it to that site again on later visits. That little note is a cookie. Technically, a cookie is a small piece of data sent by a website server to your browser. The browser can store it and send it back with later requests to the appropriate server. This gives websites a way to remember state, because ordinary web requests are otherwise mostly forgetful. Without cookies, a website can behave like a shopkeeper who develops complete amnesia whenever you move to another aisle. You log in on one page. You click your profile. The site looks at you and says, "Hello, unidentified stranger." You put socks in a shopping cart. You visit the payment page. The cart is empty. The socks have returned to the forest. A cookie solves this by giving your browser a small identifying note. It might say something like, "Session number 8241. When the browser requests another page, it sends that number back. The website checks its own records and sees that session 8241 belongs to the person who logged in and selected 3 pairs of aggressively ordinary socks. The cookie does not necessarily contain your name, password, shopping history, and a small psychological assessment. Often, it is just an identifier pointing to information stored on the website's server. Cookies can remember that you are logged in. They can hold a shopping cart together. They can remember a language, a theme, or whether you have already closed the enormous newsletter box. They can also expire in different ways. A session cookie is generally meant to last for a browsing session. A persistent cookie has an expiration time and can remain after the browser closes. That is useful if a site needs to remember you tomorrow. It is also useful if someone wants to measure what you do over a much longer period. And that is where the tiny notebook starts feeling strange. There are 2 broad relationships to understand. First-party cookies come from the site you are intentionally visiting. If you are on example.com and example.com gives your browser a cookie, that is first-party. Third-party cookies traditionally came from another company whose content was embedded in the page. A website might include an advertisement, video, social button, or analytics tool supplied by a different domain. When your browser contacted that outside company, the outside company could set or receive its own cookie. Now imagine that the same advertising company appears on hundreds of websites. Each site is a different shop, but the advertising company has a tiny desk in the corner of every shop. You visit a shoe store. The desk clerk sees your browser's identifying note. You visit a travel site. The same clerk is there. You visit an article titled, "Why My Left Knee Makes That Noise." Somehow, the clerk is also there. The company can potentially connect those visits to the same browser. It may not know your legal name, but it can build a profile around an identifier. This browser looked at running shoes, flights to Chicago, and knees. It is either planning a marathon or making several unrelated mistakes. That cross-site tracking became one of the main reasons cookies gained their suspicious reputation. The original mechanism was a simple memory aid. But a memory aid shared across many places can become a surveillance tool wearing a very small name tag. This brings us to the banners. Privacy rules vary by location, but European rules have been especially influential. Under the e-privacy framework, storing or accessing information on a user's device generally requires clear information and consent unless it is strictly necessary for a service the user requested. Consent standards also require an active, meaningful choice rather than simply treating silence as agreement. The important distinction is not really cookies versus no cookies. It is necessary storage versus optional storage. A cookie that keeps you logged in may be necessary for the account you asked to use. A cookie that remembers products in your cart may be necessary to operate the cart. Security and load balancing cookies can also be essential. A cookie used for advertising, cross-site tracking, or many forms of analytics is usually not necessary to deliver the page you requested.
The website may find it extremely desirable. Its advertising department may describe it as spiritually essential. But that is not the same thing. So the banner is supposed to let you choose whether the optional categories can be used. This is also why clicking Reject All does not usually remove every cookie. It commonly means rejecting everything except the strictly necessary ones. The website may still need a session cookie to keep the service working. It may even set a cookie to remember that you rejected cookies. This sounds like storing a note that says, "Do not store notes," but it prevents the banner from asking again on every page. If you clear your cookies, that preference note disappears. The website forgets your decision and returns with the banner, refreshed and emotionally ready to discuss the matter again. Why are these banners often so complicated? Partly because modern websites can contain tools from many outside companies. Advertising systems, analytics services, embedded media, customer support widgets, and personalization tools may all store or access information. A consent system has to organize these into categories and communicate your choice to the relevant tools. That can produce a menu containing measurement, personalization, partners, legitimate interests, and several switches whose natural habitat is a tax form. There is also a more obvious reason. Many websites make money from advertising and data. They benefit when people press the large, colorful Accept All button. They benefit less when people notice the pale gray link marked Continue without optional cookies hiding near the floor. Regulators have specifically examined designs that make rejection harder, use pre-selected options, or fail to provide a real choice. A valid consent system is meant to require a positive action, not a scavenger hunt. Cookie banners do not mean cookies are viruses. A cookie is data, not a little program that wakes up at night and searches your documents. Browsers also restrict which cookies are sent to which domains, and developers can apply protections that limit access or require secure connections. But cookies can still be sensitive. If someone steals a cookie used to identify a logged-in session, they may be able to impersonate that session. Good websites protect important cookies and invalidate them when appropriate. The danger is not that every cookie is malicious. The danger is that a small identifying note can be powerful when it opens the correct door. Rejecting cookies also does not make you invisible.
Websites can use other browser storage systems, account activity, IP addresses, tracking links, and techniques such as browser fingerprinting. Privacy rules often cover more than literal cookies for exactly this reason. Renaming the notebook does not stop it from being a notebook. Private browsing is not an invisibility cloak either. It generally keeps browsing data, including cookies, from remaining in that browser session after the private window closes. Websites, internet providers, employers, or account services may still observe activity while it happens. The cloak is mostly a person who cleans the room after you leave. So what should you actually do when a banner appears? If you do not want optional tracking, look for Reject All, Use Necessary Only, or the Preference Controls. If a site matters to you and you are comfortable supporting it through personalized advertising or analytics, you can choose accordingly. Browser privacy settings can also limit certain cookies automatically, though blocking all cookies may break useful features such as logins and shopping carts.
The main thing is to understand what the question really means. The website is not asking whether it may use the basic idea of memory. Modern websites need some memory to function. It is asking how much memory it may use, for which purposes, for how long, and whether other companies may join in. Cookies began as tiny notes that helped a forgetful web remember your visit. The trouble started when the notebooks stopped staying at one shop. So the next time a banner blocks the one sentence you came to read, picture your browser standing at the door with a pencil and a very small notebook. The website is asking what it may write down. The enormous button is just hoping you do not ask who gets to read it.